Welcome in. S0ner Sports Radio Podcast episode number 12. The Dirty Dozen. Bringing it to you. We'll go over week 11, over week 12. We will give you our Heisman update this week, we promise. And we will visit the sportsbook where Cole Murphy once again had a abysmal weekend. We will harp on him for sure. Michigan, are they still in over Tennessee if they lose to Ohio State in 2 weeks? Some people are saying yes. We'll discuss here in a minute. Oklahoma State still in the hunt for the Big 12 championship game against TCU for the moment. Will Kansas State win out and deprive the Cowboys of getting back to that game for the second year in a row? And we'll talk about NBA standings. Some shocking results only 20 games into the season. NFL, we'll touch on standings over there as well and discuss whether or not certain teams will make the playoffs or not, and then we'll give you our locks of the week, where we didn't do great, but we didn't do terrible. So we'll recap those. Joining me today, as usual, is Cole Murphy, under the weather, but here, toughing it out. Mr. Murphy, how are you today?
Seen better days, but we're hanging in there, so.
Yeah, he's hanging in, we're hanging in, everybody's hanging in. So let's go ahead and jump right into it as my hair decides to just be all over the place. Let's start with last week's games. Lots to talk about. Big games on the board. Washington and Oregon. The Ducks lose their chance at the college football playoff, losing to the Washington Huskies at home 37-34. What was your takeaway from the Ducks defense not being able to control Michael Penix Jr. in his return from injury?
Disappointing loss here this week for the Ducks. I mean, I really wanted them to be able to at least get a chance there at the end of the season. So, disappointing game, couldn't get it done. Tough loss for them that season. So, I mean, I don't think this means anything but a decent bowl game for them. So, hopefully they can at least get that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the outlook. I mean, we're thinking Fiesta Bowl, we're thinking something. You know, I mean it's gonna be a good game. And the thing is it's not completely out of the question that they can't crawl back into that 4 spot hypothetically. But as far as crazy stuff happening, they would have to need a lot of help in order to see that going forward. Another big game we talked about was LSU and Arkansas. When we did this episode 11 on Thursday last week, the spread was 3.5, and it dropped down to 3. And so when we placed our sportsbook bets before the episode ended, I took Arkansas plus the points. Coley took the other side of that, and if we had done it on Friday, you would have been right and I would have been wrong. But we did it Thursday, so I ended up being right and you ended up being wrong. But Arkansas couldn't get the win. They lose to LSU 13-10. A low-scoring affair in Fayetteville. Another big game for Arkansas this week against Ole Miss. What was your takeaway from LSU kind of struggling away from Baton Rouge?
It's kind of what I expected. I mean, Arkansas, like we said last week, is a great team, and they can usually find a way to get it done. And, of course, LSU coming off of a couple big wins, so I thought LSU would win by a little more, but, I mean, obviously closer than I expected. But, I mean, they had it right on the booking, sports betting. But Arkansas played a good game. I think they could hopefully win out. If not, LSU, I don't think they're in contention at all. Like, I don't even know how they're top 10, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it seems like LSU is kind of in that purgatory situation where it seems like they're not above the line of getting in, but they're not, they're not far below where it's like, oh, this is impossible. They could sneak in there, but again, you're talking about needing some help. Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one.
Miracle.
Yeah. Other games over the weekend, Alabama beats Ole Miss on the road 30-24. Ole Miss put up a fight for most of that game, and in the end, Alabama had to come back to defeat the Rebels of Ole Miss. What was your takeaway from Alabama getting that win against Ole Miss when they needed it?
Pretty much what we expected. I mean, just a struggling Alabama's team so far this season. I mean, definitely struggling in every aspect, crawling back, close games, really close call, last play. So pretty much what I expected. I mean, I'm pretty sure we both had money on Bama at least taking care of this by a lot more. So
Yeah.
um, just a disappointing season for Bama, and they need to get it figured out because they're not even in. I believe they're number 10 right now or 9. So they definitely need to get something figured out.
Yeah, they climbed all the way uh
To
to
8,
number 8, I think.
8,
Yeah,
yeah, over
they moved
Clemson's
up.
9.
They moved up a
Yeah.
spot, but
Okay.
it wasn't a lot. So they're still again on the outside looking in. They have Austin P this weekend, which is one of those SEC late season cupcake games where they should win by a gajillion points. Um, so this was kind of like, a good stepping stone for them heading into a bye week. Um, Other games going on. Arizona goes and beats UCLA 34-28. Kind of a shocker. Arizona had USC on the ropes this season, and then finally UCLA just kind of bit the dust against the Wildcats. Kind of a shocker. UCLA was
Yeah.
home for that game as well, so a big time win for the Wildcats of Arizona. What do you take away from this game as UCLA takes on USC this weekend?
Very shocking loss for me. Like I did not expect that coming at all. UCLA,
No.
their offense has been dominant this season. That quarterback's been getting it done throughout everything. So I mean, I can't believe an Arizona Wildcat team who's just awful could come in there and into UCLA and beat the Bruins like that. So very disappointing and awkward for them in UCLA. And I don't know if it's their defense or if they're just falling apart offensively, but very tough for them this season.
Yeah, but the thing is they didn't fall very far. They fell from 12 to 16. UCLA did from
Yeah.
last week to this week, so not a huge drop, but still enough to completely negate them from any playoff
Oh yeah.
conversation. Another shocker. Boston College gets the win over number 16 NC State, 21-20. Uh, Boston College was on the road for that game. NC State was
Wow.
home. Again, a lot of people were high on NC State coming into this season. Me and you didn't really believe it. We kind of thought, well, if they really play as well as people are hyping them up to play, then yeah, I mean, they could challenge Clemson for that ACC title. But I think that's completely out of the water. And Boston College gets a good statement win. What are your thoughts on the Eagles?
Good job, Boston College. I mean, that's a big win.
Yeah,
NC State's
it's
been really
huge.
competitive, been very competitive this season, having some big wins. So I'm surprised they came and beat them there at home. So congrats to the Eagles. Good job, guys.
Right? That was a big game, and another big game over the weekend was Kansas State at Baylor. We thought this game was going to be kind of back and forth with the way that Baylor's defense was, but Kansas State just blows out the Bears 31-3. This game was not close at all. I mean, and for Kansas State, it looks like they are Big 12 championship game bound for a rematch against
Yeah.
TCU. Any chance Kansas State doesn't get the job done and ends up dropping one of these games towards the end?
I personally think they're going to close it out. I mean, they've been too solid all the way around this year, so I think they close it out and we'll meet TCU Horned Frogs in that championship Big 12 game. So that's my opinion on it. But like a slight possibility I could see just like a field goal loss or something crazy happen and OSU sneak in there. So
Yeah, I mean they've got Kansas and West Virginia left for the
yeah,
rest of the season. That Kansas game might be
could
the
be
game.
Kansas.
Yeah, it could be Kansas.
Could
Which
be Kansas.
I'm still not comfortable saying that as Kansas
Is that
has.
game in Lawrence?
Uh, Let me see.
If that game's in Lawrence, I'll take Kansas by that 3.
Like I said, they got West Virginia left. No, it was in Manhattan. So Kansas is
Okay.
gonna have to
Okay.
travel to Kansas State to play that game.
Ooh.
But Kansas State's got West Virginia this week, and they're coming off that big win against OU. So I don't think that's going to be easy for them. They're on the road in Morgantown this weekend for that. So, I mean, there are some chances some funny stuff could happen, but
Yeah.
there's more to discuss when we talk about this week's games. But as far as last week goes, another big one. Notre Dame beats Navy 35-32. That game was back and forth. whole entire way. I was keeping tabs on that. Early Saturday, a good win for Notre Dame, I guess. I mean, they're on a little bit of a streak here.
Yeah.
They're looking to try to secure themselves in a decent bowl game. Moving down the list here, Oklahoma again loses to West Virginia in Morgantown. What were your thoughts on the Sooners struggling in the rain? Some drop passes from Marvin Mims that would have been touchdowns. Garrett Green comes in, the backup quarterback for West Virginia, and just lights up the Sooners with his running ability. Um, I mean, what? I mean, is OU just as bad as the standings say, which is the second worst team in the Big 12 right now?
And this hurts to the core to say because I mean I'm an OU fan, so I mean I think OU is the worst team in the Big 12. I mean they lost to West Virginia, who is the worst team. So I mean, record wise, OU is the second worst team, but I mean they lost to the worst team. So hey, what are you gonna say there? I mean, it was close. It did come down to a field goal. Little pooch shot in there. So who knows who really is the worst team? But regardless of all of that, I mean, OU just is having just an awful year. I mean, can't get any worse at this point. I mean, I don't think a Bedlam loss would matter. I don't think any more. I think loss every rest of the season. I don't think would matter. So OU needs to start rebuilding for next year.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that this season has been kind of bunk. I know you have to give Brent Venables, a couple years to try to get that
Yeah,
machine rolling. I think people are too quick to try to be like, oh, let's just go ahead and get rid of him. Because none of these are his guys. None of this
yeah,
defense
yeah,
is any of his recruiting guys. I know that they've lost some recruits this season due to poor play. But if I'm a recruit and I'm looking at a team that's not performing well, and I got an offer from a team where at the time I thought I was getting an offer from a really good team, I think I would still probably keep that offer in my pocket because I could be the difference between this team being bad and being good next year. Now, obviously, these young guys have, bailed and they've decommitted. So, I mean, that's not going to happen. But it's kind of shocking to me because it's like you could have been that difference. Like, you see how bad it is.
yeah,
We offered you for a reason. For me, I'm looking at that as a recruit. If it was me, I'm going look at the playing time I'm going to get.
yeah. Most
Look at
definitely.
the difference that I'm going to make. But these kids that just want to go immediately into teams that are good. They want to
Yeah,
be on national television every week. They want to be playing in the big games. And I get that. It's good for scouting. It's good for your NFL resume if you're trying to get to the next level. I understand the reasons why you're bailing, but I just don't feel like now is the time to just, bail on Brent Venables, even though he might
yeah,
not have been the one that recruited you. I think that that's
yeah,
kind of hard for OU fans to swallow, to seeing all these 4 and 5 star guys decommit because they want to go play at Texas or they want to go play, somewhere else. It's just kind of shocking to me. But I think that this season has been kind of just disappointing. You start with the
very.
TCU game, it just snowballed, um, and I think that in the end. You're looking at a team that's fighting for a bowl game that they might lose anyway. So I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of the motivation is for OU heading forward, but it didn't help losing on the road to the Mountaineers. Good win for West Virginia. They hopped the Sooners in the Big 12 standings from ninth to 8th, and Iowa State still is at the basement of the Big
Yeah.
12. So, not all doom and gloom, but definitely the worst season that a lot of OU fans have seen in the last probably 20 years. So,
Oh
it's
yeah.
rough. It's rough for the OU faithful.
Yeah, like
Moving
you were
on.
saying, I wouldn't. My bad. I wouldn't put this on Venables at all. Just to close that out, I wouldn't put this on him at all. I
No,
mean,
yeah,
he had the head coach had to come in late, and then he had the starting quarterback leave, go to another school to follow that head coach, and then the defense has already been struggling from last year, and he didn't really have his guys that he recruited to come up there, so he had to work with what the best he had, and it wasn't a lot. I mean, OU's defense is really small, and they don't know how to tackle. So when you have a small defense that doesn't know how to tackle, they're going to give up a lot of points. So I mean, that's why OU's been struggling so badly this season. So I just think Venables needs to get a couple years of recruiting, and of course, like you were saying earlier, those recruits need to understand that you can come in and make OU home and really excel the Sooners up to another move in the SEC in a couple years. So competing up there for that SEC championship in a couple years. And I think a lot of these 4-star recruits should realize that they can go to OU, who doesn't have the best of guys, and come in and even be a 3 or 4 star start or work your way up, and then end up being that guy who is competing against a Georgia or Bama or Tennessee in that championship there. So that's a good point there.
Yeah, I mean, as a junior or senior, you're talking about guys coming in, like you said, building their way up the depth chart and being able to play in those big games in
Yeah,
the SEC West. So I agree. I think that's a good point.
yeah,
Oklahoma State gets the win over Iowa State for homecoming, 20-14. Gunnar Gundy taking the helm for the Cowboys this week instead of Garrett Rangel, which was last week against Kansas. Um, a big change. I don't understand still, in my knowledge, why Mike Gundy didn't start Gunner last week in Lawrence and decided to
yeah,
start him this week in Stillwater. I don't know if something else was going on, if Gunner wasn't healthy, but part of me thinks that Mike Gundy did that for optics, right? Like, I don't want to throw my kid to a team
yeah,
that's, better than us right now. I would much rather him play against a lesser opponent, which is Iowa State, and get a W and get that confidence, and look better than Garrett Rangel because you got the W. He had some good passes to guys deep. The deep ball was looking good from Gunnar Gundy, and they get the win. But it was really the defense that showed up and stopped Iowa State on fourth down twice in the red zone
yeah,
to keep them out of taking that 1 point lead late. So I don't really think you can credit Gunnar Gundy in the offense much. I mean, you put up 20 points, but that's really not going to win you a lot of games in the Big 12.
yeah.
But props for him, give him the win. I give him a little pat on the butt. Good job, Gunner. And Spencer Sanders will be back this week for Bedlam.
There you go.
So I mean, that's kind of the big storyline going into this. Now, how long Spencer Sanders lasts in that game, that's a question, because if he gets hit a bunch, I mean, it could be Gunner Gundy time in the second half possibly. But as far as the medical staff is concerned, Spencer Sanders looks good. What was your takeaway from Oklahoma State escaping with the win against the Cyclones?
Oh, definitely. Spencer Sanders will be fine as well. Jump a little forward on that one. OU doesn't know how to hit, so I mean, I don't think he'll be getting injured anytime in that game. But as far as Iowa State, good win there for OSU with their backup getting it done there. So I love OSU's defense. I mean, hey, they're really a solid defense, and they got a lot of great players that can hold their own. So I mean, with a backup quarterback coming in, holding a team to under 20 points is really impressive. So like you were saying, their offense didn't score enough, but their defense is good enough to hold a team off if need be.
Yeah, I think that was what it came down to, was a sack
Yeah,
on fourth down to thwart the Cyclones' chance to tie that ball game up late. Colin Oliver gets the sack on the quarterback, and that was kind of the end for Hunter Deckers. Um, I don't know if there was really anything else last week that kind of stood out to me. Oh, Marshall got the win over Appalachian State. I mean, none of those teams are ranked, but that was kind of an upset for me. Um, Texas Tech beats Kansas 43-28. That game was in Lubbock, and the Sooners still have to go down to Lubbock to play the Red Raiders, so a little confidence booster there.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
Jason Bean led the way passing, though, for that game, 270 yards for the Jayhawks. Tough loss for Kansas, but we kind of expected the trajectory to kind of go downhill after that TCU game,
Yeah.
considering that Daniels was going to be out for the rest of the season. So that's kind of played out the way we kind of expected. Auburn gets the win over Texas A&M. Texas A&M 4-7, guys. This was a preseason top 10 team that's now 4-7. Um, are we? I mean, I was never buying into Texas A&M. I know you weren't buying into Texas A&M, but
Oh
everybody
yeah.
and their mother was buying into Texas A&M
Oh yeah.
preseason. And Jimbo's got some problems down there in College Station. What are your thoughts on the turmoil happening down there with the Aggies?
Uh Man, it's tough to say. I mean, um, there's too much to get rid of him, and then I mean he is a great coach. So I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know if it's just a bad year, if they can rebuild off of this, or if this is really the team Texas A&M is. I mean, they were talking about their recruits and why they were ranked so highly at the beginning of the season, having those top guys and how they had those recruits coming in. So um, I don't know if they're going to pick up the pieces from here or if it's going to be same old story next year. So I guess we'll see. And if it is, I believe they fire him, of course. So that definitely falls on the coach after that.
Yeah, he's going to be owed I say $80 million if they fire
Oh,
him next
wow.
year or something, because they hired him with that 10-year $100 million deal last year.
Jeez.
So I mean, not that there's not oil money floating around in Texas to buy him out, but man,
Yeah.
I mean, and for me personally, I mean, I can't think of a better job than failing at a job and then getting to sit at home for the next years with $80 million in my pocket. I mean,
He's a
these college
genius. He's
coaches
a
really do
genius.
have it made.
He's a
He's a
genius.
genius. He's like, we're gonna hype it up. We're gonna get these recruits in. We're gonna give them that McDonald's bag and get them here. And then once they're here, we'll get the NIL deals going. We'll get some more in here, and then we're just gonna tank. I'm just gonna get fired. They're gonna hire me to a great extension. I'm gonna sit at home
Brilliant.
and have my feet on the couch. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's just I can't believe some of these contracts they give these guys. Because when they fail, it's like,
Yeah.
obviously you want to get rid of them, but it's like, you can't afford to at some point. And that
Yeah.
and that might be the case for Texas A&M. They might have to ride Jimbo Fisher for a couple more years, even if it doesn't look good. And I think that they'll probably bounce back a little bit. I think there was a lot of overhype from recruiting, and it just shows how hard it is to recruit these high school guys and be like, oh, they're 4 and 5 star guys. They're going to translate real well. And then when they don't, it's like, what the fuck? Like, it just proves that you really don't know anything about these high school kids 9 times out of 10. I mean, an example, Jackson Arnold looks really good. OU bringing
Yeah.
him in looks like a promising prospect, but do we really know how he's going to translate from high school
The Big
into
12, yeah.
the Big 12?
Or
Same with
SEC.
Archie Manning. Is Archie going to come in and give Texas exactly what they need his freshman year, or are we going to see Quinn Ewers again, even though Quinn Ewers has struggled? We don't know. I mean, at this point, people are like, oh, yeah, Archie Manning, oh, yeah, Jackson Arnold, those guys are going to be, the top 2 quarterbacks next year in this conference. I mean, and that could be the case, but it could also be one of those cases where, like at Texas A&M, where it's like they just don't pan out, not playing well, the scheme doesn't fit them, something's wrong, injuries, whatever, and you could end up scratching your head going, I thought we had this figured out, and we don't. So I think that's kind of the deal with Texas A&M is I think it just proves how hard it is to scout players this day and age because everybody looks good against
Yeah.
kids, and then when they are against other men, it's like fuck. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard to tell coming out of high school. I mean, because you don't really know how good they are because of the talent they're playing against, and they actually dropped Archie back to number 2. He was the number 1, but they dropped back to number 2 because of his competition level. They didn't see it being higher than the kid out in Cali who's going to USC.
okay,
Um, so he's actually 1 now, and Archie's 2 because of that talent level. So it's really actually hard to tell who's going to be good. But I mean, you usually see some of those 2, 3 stars being better than 4 or 5 stars, just depending on where you're coming from. So I mean, it's definitely hard to tell. So
yes,
recruiting is very
yeah.
important.
Some examples of that are mainly OSU players that I could think of. Justin Blackman was a 2-star coming out of Ardmore.
Yeah,
Brandon Whedon was not highly recruited out of Santa Fe because he went to go play baseball and played
yeah,
for the Yankees and then decided to come back to school. I mean, those are the kind of guys where it's like, damn, like how did other teams miss out on these guys? But yet,
yeah.
they end up coming to a school like OSU and completely changing that culture and winning that 2011 Big 12 championship and blowing OU out 44-10. I mean, just how did that happen? Where
Just had to bring it up, didn't we?
I mean, hey, it's Bedlam week. We got to talk about it. So, anyways, let's hop into next week and let's get that going with week 12 upon us now. Big games this weekend. They're kind of few and far between as far as ranked matchups go. Georgia has Kentucky at 2:30, so I mean that one's in Lexington. Could Kentucky get it done? They just lost over the weekend to a really bad Vanderbilt team. I watched that game on the SEC network the other day. It was replaying, and I was like, well, let's see what happened. And Kentucky just didn't play well, and they actually lost the game on a personal foul penalty where they had a chance to get the ball back with 2 minutes to go, and on 3rd and 15, they got called for unnecessary roughness, 15 yards, automatic first down, and Vanderbilt was able to just kneel it away. So tough loss for Kentucky on the road. But they host the number 1 team in the country, so that place is going to be rocking. Any chance that Kentucky can get the job done? As of right now, I'm looking at it right here on DraftKings. The spread on this game is... Where'd it go? It left me. It decided to leave at the last second. Where is it? When they F these... Oh, here we go. Georgia's a 22.5-point favorite
Okay.
on the road. So your thoughts on possibility of something crazy happening in Lexington?
I don't think the Wildcats have a chance, but I also don't think. I don't know. I think it depends on weather. I mean, they had a bad week, and usually teams that have bad weeks like that end up having a better defensive week after. So I could see them holding them around 20 points or so. I could see um, Georgia throwing in backups as well towards the end of the game. So I like them right around that 20-point mark. So I guess I'll have them under. But yeah, there's no. I don't think the Wildcats have a chance this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think this is a 14, 17 point kind of contest. I mean, the way that
Yeah,
things are kind of trending heading into this week, maybe Georgia takes them a little lightly coming off that loss to Vanderbilt. Um, but I could also see Georgia rolling here on the road just because of just who they
yeah.
are, which they are now the new Alabama. They are the new, who's gonna beat these guys team. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 tomorrow. Another game going on. Texas is on the road in Lawrence to play Kansas. Kansas has had Texas's numbers the last couple of years. Could the Jayhawks do it again?
I don't like them with if they had their starting quarterback in, I just don't like how they've been doing this far with their backup. I mean, he's not a bad quarterback, but I don't think that Kansas team is able to get it done against Texas this week.
Yeah, I'm looking for that game as well to see if what the spread is on that, because I guarantee you that Texas is probably favored again, and they are favored by 9 on the
Okay.
road. Um, they kept it close with TCU. I put my $1,000 on them to cover, and they did cover,
Mhm.
but they still lost by 17-10. So they put up a good fight against TCU, but in the end, it was more of the fact that the offense for Texas couldn't get going, which could be a good sign for Kansas. Um, so we'll see. I think that game is going to be close, like it has been the last 3 years, where Kansas is. They won on a 2-point conversion last year, I think, and then won on a last-second field goal the year before that. So I mean, they've had some good luck with better Texas teams. So maybe this is one where people start putting a little bit more money on Kansas just because maybe
Yeah.
Texas won't play as well. Who knows? But I think that game is going to be must watch for a lot of people in the Midwest. Um, Ole Miss is on the road in Fayetteville to play Arkansas. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Arkansas kind of holding their own against LSU for most of that game. Um, Ole Miss coming off that loss to Alabama. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think the Rebels take care of business. I see it being closer than what's the spread that do they have on this one so
This
far?
is a really close spread. Ole Miss is favored by 2.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking. It's going to be close. I just think the Rebels squeeze out that win there and end up getting it done.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Hogs have kind of have done their best. They're not a terrible team, like you said. They're pretty good. It's just I don't think they're in that upper echelon of the SEC this year. I think they're just on the outside of that. So I also like Ole Miss here rebounding after a close loss to Alabama. Um,
Yeah.
Another night game. You will be at this game if you're feeling up to it. Oklahoma State traveling to Norman to play OU. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ABC. Number 22 Cowboys looking to try to win 2 Bedlams in a row. Um, Thoughts?
I'm hoping I can recover. I'd like to see that one. I haven't been able to get to a game this year so far, but I like the Pokes here. I don't have any faith in OU. Being an OU fan, I just think OSU's defense is better, and I think they can hold OU. I think OU will score. I think OU's offense can put up some points on OSU, but at the end of the day, I think with Sanders being in there and how competitive he is and how he can usually get the offense rolling, I got the OSU winning by at least 10 here.
Yeah, OU is favored by 7 in this game.
Yeah, so I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they think Eric Gray is going to run for 300 yards against this OSU
yeah.
defense. But the OSU defense has not been able to stop the run, so you've got that going for you. The front 7 for OSU is supposed to be the best part of their defense, and has actually been the most disappointing part of their defense. The defensive line has not gotten a lot of push up front, which could kind of help OU. and obviously that place is going to be lit up because it's Bedlam and it's going to be packed. So I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for OU to get a win. I mean, I hate to say this, but I like the Sooners. I really like
Oh
OU. I
wow,
really like
this
OU
is
to just
awkward.
run all over Oklahoma State. I just think that Spencer Sanders, coming off an injury, you're going to be a little rusty. OU's looking for, this is their Super Bowl. This is their
Oh
this
yeah,
is this is their national championship is this game this week because it kind of dictates whether or not they're going to go to a bowl game or not because of the way the schedule just kind of makes out for OU. It doesn't look promising for them following this game. You have to still go to Lubbock and play Texas Tech, and that's your last game of the season. But if you don't win this game, it seems like Texas Tech is on the trajectory to probably beat you at home, considering how they manhandled Kansas, and considering OU beat Kansas but barely. It just doesn't look good for them heading off of a loss to OSU if they lose this weekend. But I understand where you're coming from. I mean, with Spencer Sanders being back, and yes, OSU's defense is better than OU's overall, but it's strength against weakness here with OU's running game against OSU's front seven. And then on the other side, you have Spencer Sanders, and OU's weakness has been the passing defense. Yes, you can run all over them as well, but that's only if they run that three-man front they've been trying to run most of the season. And yeah, OSU's got some dogs back there at running back, but they don't have the offensive line play this year that they thought they were going to have. So the running game for the Cowboys has been kind of eh. But when you play OU, it seems like the running game just kind of comes alive. So I don't know. The over-under for this game is 66.5. So they think that both these teams are going to put up at least 28 points apiece. I could see that happening. I don't know. With the way OSU is and the way that this season has kind of gone for them, another disappointing kind of year for OU football in general, or Oklahoma football in general, I should say. No matter where you are, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma State, it's all been bad, or worse than you expected, at least. So, I mean, I like OU at home. I think they're kind of in this spot where OSU might be like, oh, this is our year, coming in a little overconfident, and they might get kicked in the teeth. But I like your pick with OSU. I could see it going both ways.
now Stoner Sports. How awkward is this? We got the OSU guy projecting OU. We got the OU guy going OU. Does that mean I wear OSU shirt down there and I give you an OU shirt,
Yeah,
or what does this mean, man?
exactly. Yeah, I should wear my OU jersey, and I'll just bring my Des Bryant jersey for you to wear. That way you can just
Okay,
fit in.
I might get
Um,
some love out there too. I was planning on sitting in the student section, so
Hey,
I'm
there
gonna
you
get a
go.
lot of
There you go. There you go. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a big game, but a bigger game in my mind going on later on that evening is USC traveling on the road to play UCLA. Um, I like UCLA in this game, even though they just lost to Arizona. I do like UCLA to win this game. USC is only favored by 2 points. This is one of those games where both of these offenses are good and both the defenses are trash. So this could be a
hmm
42-35 kind of game. The over-under for this is 75.5. So the sports bettors just think it's going to be points, 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 points. But it could be USC 55 and USC or UCLA 20. I mean, it could go both of these directions. What are your thoughts on this rivalry game?
I'm going opposite. I mean, I think USC is going to close out the rest of the season. I think they're going to take care of the Pac-12. I think they're going to be really trying to slip the committee a little extra dollars to throw them in there, even though they have no shot actually being in there. But I mean, I just think USC is going to close it out by at least over their spread. I like them by more than two. So I like USC here.
Yeah, I mean it's hard for me to not pick USC coming off of UCLA losing to Arizona. It's just a really ugly loss. No one really
Yeah.
wants to lose to Arizona. Um, but I'm a USC kind of hater. But like you said,
Oh yeah. Same here.
I don't see them losing this game. If I see them losing a game, it'll be to my Ducks, for a trip to the Fiesta Bowl or whatever. But I think that that Utah loss is really a scar on USC's season this year.
Definitely.
Without it, I think they are undoubtedly probably above TCU. in the rankings just because of the way the media
Yeah,
loves to tout those California schools.
it
Um,
would be.
so I mean, but we'll see what happens. I think that game is going to be must-watch TV as well. Another game late happening is Utah on the road to play Oregon. Number 10 Utah versus number 12 now.
Ooh,
You
I like this one.
Oregon. Last year didn't go so well for me. My Ducks got absolutely destroyed on the road in Utah by like 40 points or something. We just got absolutely manhandled. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. That game is going to be one of the last games of the evening. Kickoff is 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So hopefully Cole will be partying it up down in Norman and winding down when the fourth quarter starts in that game. Um, but I mean, I like my Ducks here because they're at home. Obviously, that loss against Washington at home doesn't look good. But I this is just a toss up for me. I just don't know how to feel
Yeah.
about this game, to be brutally honest. Utah's a 2-point favorite on the road. Don't know if I like that spread in particularly, but if Bo Nix and the offense play as well as they play last week, all the defense has to do is play better, and I think they walk away with a win. Utah has been disappointing this year. They have not been a great team, but ever since they beat USC, they have not really been on a losing track. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they've only lost one other, you know, 2 games this season, one to Florida and one to UCLA, and they've won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Um, they haven't lost since they beat USC, so I mean that kind of looks good for them. And
Yeah.
this is kind of their last big game because they play Colorado after this, and everybody just blows out Colorado. So I'm not worried
Yeah.
about them losing that game at all. So this is kind of their last ditch effort to try to make
Yeah.
a New Year's bowl game. But I like the Ducks at home. I just think home field advantage. We have to take advantage of that, and if we don't,
Yeah.
obviously, you're looking at Utah probably playing USC again in the
Yeah.
Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, that'd be a great. This is it's really tough to say here, like you're saying. I can't really put a finger on which way I'm trying to go, but I mean, with them having 4 wins and haven't lost since USC, um, and with Cam Rising being in there still, I think and I hate to do this because I love the Ducks and they're at home and if Bo Nix has got the offense fired up, I think it's going to be close here. I'll stick with the spread here with the Utah by 2.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I think that both these teams are playing really good football right now, so I think that'll be a very entertaining game to watch, and I will definitely be all up in that after the OU OSU game.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Another game we really didn't talk about, we'll touch on a little bit, is TCU going on the road to play Baylor. Baylor obviously lost last week, 31-3 against Kansas State, so TCU
yeah.
should take care of business on the road here. Um, I didn't see the spread on this, but I'm pretty sure it's decently favored towards TCU. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Um, oh my gosh, TCU is only favored by 2. So they think that Dave
Oh
Aranda
wow.
is going to come up this week with a defensive scheme to stop this
Oh
TCU
man.
offense, but I think that kind of hinges on the fact that they only scored 17 against Texas. I think that's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, oh, they didn't score a bunch against Texas. I think Baylor's defense is still better than Texas, even though they just got blown out by Kansas State. Yada yada. I mean, I don't know really what Vegas is thinking here because I think TCU's got this in the bag by 10 plus. I think they really are playing good football here. And, could they lose the Big 12 championship game to a Kansas State team? I could see it happening.
Oh
Yes, I could see it happening because Kansas State almost beat them the first time and they didn't have their starting quarterback and they might have Adrian Martinez back and that could be the difference. But we don't
yeah.
know any of that yet. And that might not matter if Dave Aranda is able to come up with a defensive scheme to stop Max Duggan in this offense, which seems to be struggling for like the second week in a row. They just haven't put up a lot of points. The defense has played
Yeah.
great, but the offense has really kind of struggled in comparison to what we saw against OU and what we saw against other teams. Because if you go back to the Oklahoma State TCU game, only won by 6, 30-24. Wasn't a big win. That was kind of one of those games where I thought Oklahoma State was going to dethrone TCU. I think you picked Oklahoma State to win that game as well. I haven't
Yep.
looked, but I think that we were both on the Oklahoma State side because at the time they were in the top 10 and TCU was right behind them. And now it
Yeah.
seems like TCU has taken that momentum from that Oklahoma State game and just ran with it. And they've done well, but they've been skirting by all these teams that are supposed to be worse than them. Like the West Virginia game, way too close for comfort. I mean, I picked West Virginia to win that game because I think at home they're really good, and OU fell to them at home because at home they play really good. Um, and that could be a problem for Kansas State this week. I mean, it's such a the Big 12 is just so fucked. It's just
It is.
it's except for that top spot where TCU has, everybody else from 2, 3, 4 has a chance to get in there.
Yeah.
Baylor's 4-3, Oklahoma State is 4-3, Texas is 4-3. Those are the
Wow.
teams you're looking at to possibly take the spot. Now, obviously, OSU has the tiebreaker over Baylor and Texas, so they would
Yeah.
obviously go in over but Kansas State holds the tiebreaker. So even if Kansas State loses this weekend, they would still be ahead of the Cowboys, even if OSU wins,
Right.
because they'd both be 5-3, and Kansas State blew out Oklahoma State.
Beat
So
them. Yep.
that would be kind of it. It would all come down to that Kansas State game if both of those teams were to win this weekend. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's and the funny thing is if Kansas State loses to Kansas, OSU already lost to Kansas. So does that even matter? So
Yeah.
part of me thinks that Kansas State has to lose to West Virginia and Kansas in order for
Yep.
OSU to have a chance to slide up there. It's weird. I don't really know how to feel about that, but as far as right now, I think it's TCU Kansas State, and that's probably what we're looking at for the Big 12 championship game down in Arlington. But yeah, so that
Yeah. I think you're right on that.
kind of wraps up this upcoming week in college football. So let's talk about our Heisman lists because it's becoming very close to that time. The last time we did it was 2 weeks ago, and the list looked like this. You had Hooker at 1, Stroud at 2, Young at 3, Duggan at 4, and Hyatt at 5. I had
Okay.
Stroud at 1, Hooker at 2, Young at 3, Caleb Williams at 4, and Duggan at 5. Any changes to your list, sir?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, you got to start with Stroud 1. He has the
Okay.
numbers, and his team's undefeated.
hmm
Um, Man, this is tough. I got to look at that list. I had sent you real quick, briefly,
They had Drake
because
May
they
on
had
there.
it. They had it. A couple of the guys that were the stats. Um, of course, I got to keep Hooker at 2. He's already been up there as well. Uh, CJ just has a little bit better, more touchdowns. Of course, his team hasn't lost yet, but I'll still have Hooker at 2. Um, give me Duggan 3. I've been
Okay.
really hyping him. I gotta put him 3. I think he's a little bit disrespected this season. Doesn't have the top numbers, but I mean he's finding a way every week, and this guy is getting it done in the Big 12, which is a serious conference. So I gotta put him at 3. Um, Give me Blake Graham at 4, uh, mainly just because he's been leading. Obviously, his stats are really high. He's been running very well, and he has 17 TDs currently as a running back. So I think that's very impressive. Um, and at that 5th spot, oh, give me. I think I have to take Williams here, even though Drake does have the same amount of losses. I'm gonna go with Williams here. I just think he's the better athlete. I think he has more Heisman moments this season. So
So
that
for
is my top 5. That'll be my top 5.
so for the first time, no Bryce Young. So for the first time this
Yeah, he's
season,
out.
no
Yeah, he's out
Bryce
next season.
Young.
No. 2
Uh,
losses, and then you're not even in there, buddy. Sorry.
yeah, it's been rough going. So for me, I'm sticking with my number one that I've had all season, CJ Stroud. I've not
Fair
wavered on
enough.
that at all. I thought that was a very good thing. In my number 2 spot, um, I think I'm gonna put Doug in it too. I haven't had him on my list at all.
Hey.
I had him at 5 2 weeks ago. I mean, if you're not losing, like you said, and you're in the Big 12, I don't think there's really any excuse to not have him as that second option. At number 3, I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. I
Okay.
think he still has the numbers that are impressive to me, and even though the Pac-12 stinks, it's hard to pick against him, considering the low amount of turnovers and the high completion percentage. At my 4 spot, I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker. He's good. I don't have a problem with him. I just think his team and the way they're playing right now is kind of more the problem than he is. And at 5, I'm going to go with Corum as well. He's playing good, but I think if Ohio State beats him and Michigan in a couple weeks, I think that's curtains for him. So there you go, folks. There's your Heisman update. Bryce Young not on either of our lists for the first time this season. Had a hard time keeping Bryce out of that 5 spot. I think he could easily overtake that 5 spot if Michigan loses to Ohio State, but a lot.
It was that loss for LSU for me. That's why I had to drop him. I mean, you can't just have 2 bad losses like that, and then obviously he still has high numbers, but
I just don't think that's his fault though. Like the offense played well. It's just a defense that has it's OU. It's an OU defense. It's OU 2014. It's the offense is great. The defense is trash, and it's something that Nick Saban hasn't had to deal with since he's gotten there. And I think that he's kind of in that Lincoln Riley position where it's like my offense is really good, but God, my defense can't stop a Pee Wee football team. I mean, it's one of and they're very undisciplined. It's the most undisciplined Alabama team I've ever seen. They have so many penalties per game. It's crazy. So I think that's kind of where you're looking at right there. So that kind of touches on that for a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the favorite part of our show, the S0ner Sportsbook. Look, Cole is yearning. Cole is yearning for a good week. He went 1-4 last week again, second week in a row, going 1-4. I go 3-2 again for the second week in a row, but only go 3-2 by half a point on 2 of my games. I got my Arkansas by half a point and Texas by half a point. We both picked OU to cover. They did not. We both picked Alabama to cover. They did not. We got the Oklahoma State was the only one we both got right was the Oklahoma State over Iowa State. So this week it's time to kind of nut up and decide whether or not we're going to be winners. Let's start out with TCU and Baylor. TCU a 2-point favorite against Baylor. I'm guessing you're taking TCU. You've got $150 to work with. I've got $1,150. I lost $50. You lost $200. But again, remember, we get $100 added back to our piggy bank, regardless of what happens. So that's why we're still sitting in the positives for right now, or else Cole would be playing with $50. I don't know how he would feel about that. So, Cole, out of the 150, how confident are you in TCU -2 here against Baylor?
Man, of course, I'll take 50 on the Horned Frogs. I'm scared because I think David Aranda might have TCU's number, but I'm gonna knock on something now because David Aranda is a great head coach and he can really get them Bears fired up. So I think TCU is gonna win here, and I think they're gonna cover that spread. But David Aranda is a scary guy.
All right, so you're taking TCU -2. TCU, Baylor. I will also take TCU -2. I will put 100 on that. I am not very confident on that at all. Second game, let's just jump into it and go Bedlam. OU favored by 7 against OSU. Are you wanting to put $25 all the way down for the rest of them, or are you trying to get some money back?
I'll do 25 for this one. I'm gonna do a little bit bigger. Yeah, I'll do 25. I'm gonna do for OSU plus the 7. Because it's OU -7, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I'll take OSU plus that and 25.
Yeah, I'm gonna put OU -7. I like the Sooners. I'm gonna put 500 big ones on.
Woo!
I don't have any faith in Oklahoma State.
Wow.
Even I mean, it's just, and the thing is it's just maybe history's getting to me where OSU has just kind of been little brother forever. So it's just kind of hard for me to see them being able to capitalize on a moment where they should be able to, because they just have a track record of choking it. So I mean, I'm all in on the Sooners this week, and I think that Eric Gray is going to have a great game. and I think that's going to be the difference. The third game we're going to do, let's go ahead and jump to UCLA and USC.
Yeah,
USC is favored by 2 there. You've got them winning that game. Uh, how much are we putting on the Trojans?
I'll do 35 on the
Okay,
Trojans. I think they're gonna wrap this one.
35 on that, so that do with $40. And I'm gonna also go USC -2 there, and I'm gonna go ahead and put 500 on that as well. That leaves me with 25 on the last 2 games. That's what I'll put on the last 2. For what they are, it'll be $25 on those. You want to put 20 on your last 2? Round you out.
What are the last two we're doing?
I don't know yet, but I mean, I'm
Okay.
saying as far as money on it, you just want to put 20 on both of those.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's
Okay,
fine.
we'll do 20 on both of those. I mean, you could do 30 and 10 or whatever, but I think I'm gonna go with the Texas and Kansas game. Texas -9
Okay.
against Kansas. Um,
Yeah, I'll go 20 there.
okay, on Texas.
Yeah, on
Okay,
Texas to win
Texas
that.
-9. I'm gonna
Cover that.
pick Kansas plus the 9,
Hoo-hoo.
and I mean, we'll see how that goes for me. But they're at home, and I think that I think they could get it done. And for the last game, let's go with Oregon and Utah. That's a good one. Uh, Again, Utah is favored by 2 points there in that one as well. So a lot of close spreads here. Um,
Yeah, I'll take the 20 on that last one as well for
okay.
Utah to cover.
Utah -2 on that one. And as much as I hate to do it, I'm gonna go Oregon plus the 2.
Oh,
As much as
oh,
I
you
tried
can't
to
hate
talk
that.
myself out of it, I'm just gonna roll with my boys. Hope they can
Of
do what they're
course.
supposed to do at home and get the job done. So there you have it. We got TCU minus the 2, OU -7 for me, OSU +7 for Cole. I have USC and -2 for both of us. Texas -9 for Cole, Kansas +9 for me, Utah -2 for Cole, and Oregon +2 for me. And that will be this week's sports book. So let's talk about kind of the big story that you were telling me yesterday. Was a lot of people think that if Michigan loses
Yeah.
to Ohio State, that they would still be preferred in the college football playoff at that 4 spot over Tennessee. Um, I'm looking at this, and it it makes sense, but it doesn't, because
Yeah.
Tennessee's at that 5 spot, and if you look at the schedule here for Tennessee, obviously their only loss it is to Georgia by 14, which is the top team in the country. They've
Yeah.
got South Carolina this week. Spencer Rattler and those boys are probably going to take one on the head. And then they've got Vanderbilt, which they should take care of as well. So they would presumably be 11-1 with 1 loss to the top team in the country and a win over, at the time, number 3 Alabama, and a win over, currently right now, number 6 LSU. So
Yeah.
very strong schedule. Don't have a problem with it, right? Like that seems like a 4 spot contender if Michigan loses. Now, we already know that Michigan has not played anybody really all season, right? I mean, they've played some decent games against teams, but they
Their
haven't
biggest
really.
win is Penn State. Their biggest
Yeah,
win is Penn State.
Penn State, who is number 11 in the country right now and was number 10 when they played them, so not a lot of movement there. Wins against Hawaii, Colorado State, UConn, Maryland, Iowa, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Nebraska, which I cannot believe. Um, my locks of the week when we get there, but we'll get there. They have Illinois this week. Illinois was ranked for the longest time. They aren't ranked this week, which helps Tennessee, because if they were ranked this week, then people would say, "Oh well, you beat 2 ranked teams, and if you lose to Ohio State, I just don't." So what was the argument? Was it strength of schedule? Like, what was the argument for putting um, Michigan above Tennessee? Was it just the fact that they didn't think they would fall because of the fact that it would be against the number 2 team in the country, and they would just?
Exactly.
I mean, that's just bizarre to me, because it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if that. I mean, I don't know if that would happen though, because of the fact that Tennessee's in the SEC. The only losses to the top team in the country, but maybe it's because they don't want to see Georgia versus Tennessee 2 Electric Boogaloo. Could that be the problem? Is the problem the fact that we don't want to see a rematch? Is that what it is?
It might be, yeah. I don't really know where people. I don't. I'm like I said, I saw this on Twitter. I think I might have sent it to you. So I'm not really sure the exact source it's from, but there's been word that's a possibility. So that triggered me for sure because I'm like, there's no way like they put a Michigan team after they lose to Ohio State because that's gonna happen over a Tennessee or even a USC if they went out. So I mean, that one grinded me the wrong way. So I didn't like to see that at all. But I mean, I don't know where people's heads are at with that one. It doesn't make sense. I don't even know how that's even a discussion. Michigan, as soon as they lose, they need to fall down to about six or so and get a good little bowl game and have a good rest of their season. But they haven't played anybody. Tennessee, like you said, has beat Alabama and when they were ranked high, and an LSU team who was also ranked high as well. So I'm not sure if they were at the time, but they are now. So it looks more impressive. So Tennessee, in my opinion, has to have that, even with them not going to a conference championship game. I think that was the big thing there. They're saying Tennessee isn't going to play at a conference championship. So after they get done with their last game, they're done. So, but that means if Michigan loses, they're not in the conference championship either. So I don't know how they would um, put Michigan over Tennessee there. But that's the discussion there.
Yeah, because it would be Purdue playing Ohio State if Ohio State
Yeah,
wins, and it would be Purdue playing Michigan if Michigan wins. So Purdue looks like they've got the top spot right now. Of course, like I said, Illinois plays Michigan this week. If Illinois beats Michigan, obviously that would be lights out for Michigan. I don't think you have a shot. Um,
yeah,
but I'm looking here at these standings now. Here's a bigger question for you. So LSU right now is primed to play Georgia. LSU's number
yeah.
6 right now. Georgia's number 1. So if LSU beats Georgia, that would probably put them at that 4 spot, right? Especially if Ohio State beats Michigan. But that would move TCU potentially up to that 2 spot, right behind Georgia.
Wow.
So I mean that's kind of the situation you're looking at right now. Is if LSU wins out, they would be the 4th seed. Georgia would be the 2 seed, and TCU could be the 1 seed if they went out. Because why would you have Georgia still at number 1 after they lose to a team like LSU? Now LSU would jump from 6 to 4, and then you would have Ohio State instead of if they lose, obviously. If they win, I think they would probably still be. I think they would be number 1, and then it would be TCU. But I think that if Michigan loses to Ohio State and Georgia loses to LSU, you could see Ohio State, TCU, Georgia, and LSU as your last
Yeah.
4, which would be LSU versus Ohio State and TCU versus Georgia. So
Oh wow.
I don't know how, because you were saying like, TCU's got to avoid Georgia in order to get to that championship game, and it
Yeah.
seems like the only way to do that is if Georgia wins out, beats LSU, and finishes it out, no contest. Um, and if Ohio State beats Michigan,
Yep.
that's the only way they miss out, and that would be TCU versus Ohio State, and then Georgia would be playing either Tennessee or USC.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're looking at right now.
Could get crazy, folks.
Yeah, it's getting to that point where these last 2 weeks really mean the world of difference. But I like that conversation. I think it really opens some doors to some more possibilities. Um, so let's take a gander and let's take a trip around the association here. Uh, the NBA standings here. We'll get you an update here. We are only 15 games into the season, but hey, we're looking at some crazy developments here. Let's look at the Eastern Conference right now. Boston Celtics are leading the way right now at 12-3, followed by the Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Raptors, and Pacers round out your top 6. Right now, the teams in the East that are just out of playoff contention are the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls. The Heat, 76ers, Knicks, and Wizards would all be in the playoffs if the playoffs were to start today. Any takeaways from the Eastern Conference?
Pretty much what I expected. I mean, I had the Celtics pretty high on my list and Milwaukee as well. So I think those are the teams that are going to end up, even with it being a little early. I think those are the teams that are going to end up rounding out and being at the top. I could see Brooklyn winning a few more, but I mean, I am not a fan of Brooklyn. I don't like KD and anybody over there. He also has no face, so I don't like Brooklyn at all. And I do like the Celtics in Milwaukee though. There's definitely my two from the East that I definitely like there.
Yeah, right now, Boston on an 8-game winning streak. They're looking really good. Um, my Brooklyn Nets pick is looking terrible. Um, um, but if we jump over to the Western side, my Nuggets pick isn't looking terrible.
Yeah.
Right now, Portland leads the Western Conference at 10-5. That's kind of a shock to me. I didn't see Portland being in the conversation with Damian Lillard possibly playing his last season for the Blazers. Um, Looking good for them. They lost their last game, but they are 10-5. They are a game above the Phoenix Suns, and then my Nuggets come in at number 3, and then you have the Jazz, Pelicans, and Grizzlies topping out the top 6, followed by the Mavericks, Kings, Clippers, and T-Wolves. And right now the Thunder are at that 11 spot, just out of the play-in game, and below them is the Golden State Warriors, Spurs,
Wow.
Lakers, and Rockets. So is it time to sound the alarm on the Golden State Warriors, or is it just 15 games in and I am just, giddy about the Thunder being one game above them?
I mean, I don't want to see Golden State win. I want to sound the alarm, and I want them to fail. Like they've been winning for too many years now, and it's impressive. Kind of like in Alabama, they're always at the top. But I mean, I'm just kind of sick of seeing them. So I hope they do fall, and I hope we can sound those alarms, and Golden State does fall off the map and keeps the position and holds where they're at, right below Thunder. But realistically, I think Curry and Clay and all those guys are going to get it figured out, and I think they're going to crawl their way back up, kind of to that mid spot of the Western Conference, and end up getting in that playoff around the 3 or 4 slot. So I see them crawling back up, and I hate to say that, but I mean, they've been 3-time champions since 2015. So I mean, hey, we got to look at these guys seriously. So I think they're going to come back and end up getting that 3 spot, maybe even 2. So
Yeah.
um, as much as I would love to see them lose and fall all the way down and just have injuries, and I don't really wish injuries on anybody, but that would be nice to see the Golden State have a bad year.
Yeah, I mean the Warriors not playing super well. But like we said, 15 games in the season, still got like 60 more to go. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of room to jostle around these standings right now. But I mean, that's definitely a shock. The Lakers being second to last, not really a shock. Um,
Yeah, they're awful.
as far as teams that are doing well that I didn't expect to do well, the only one is really Portland, who's leading the West right now. I just didn't really see that happening.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
But who knows how long that's going to last? They're only one game above the Phoenix Suns, so I mean that might, they could drop down to 6 in 2 games. So I mean, there's a lot of switching around going on right now, but it's just fun to look at this early on in the season and kind of see where teams are at.
Looks
Moving
like you
on.
took care of me in that fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, moving on to the NFL.
GG.
Yeah, the NFL standings here, conference-wise and division-wise here. Um, Conference-wise, the AFC is led by the Kansas City Chiefs at 7-2, followed by the Miami Dolphins and the Tennessee Titans, both at 7-3. The Titans get a big win last night against the Packers on the road. Aaron Rodgers looks terrible, and I love every second of it. And for the NFC, you have the Eagles at 8-1, followed by the Vikings at 8-1, who had that amazing comeback against the
Oh
Bills.
yeah.
You have the Giants at 7-2, which a lot of people didn't really see happening. Then you have the Cowboys and the Seahawks rounding that out. But division-wise is kind of what we're more concerned about right now. And division-wise, AFC East looks like Miami's got that locked up. They just have to dispose of the Jets. The Bills are now at the 3rd spot in the AFC East after people thought that they would just roll over both of those teams. What's going on with the Jets, man? I mean, the Jets were supposed to be terrible. Why are they not terrible?
I mean, they have a good defense. I mean, they have a bunch of good guys there on defense, and their offense is sneaking some touchdowns in there too. And Zach Wilson, I mean, he's a decent quarterback, even though he's been out a little bit. I'm not really sure who they threw back there, but the Jets are. I mean, they're a bad team, but offensively, but they got the defense. I mean, they've been stacking guys up over the years. So I mean, they got a good defense, and they've been finding a way to win. So I don't think the Jets have a chance this season, but kudos to them for being better than I expected them to be.
Yeah, I mean we're at the halfway point here in the season, and we got 9 weeks left. I think we got one more bye week left. Um, uh, right now, in the AFC, that's kind of where you're looking there. AFC North, the Ravens are up on the Bengals by a game. Cleveland is 3-6, as well as the Steelers. Not really any shocks there. The Bengals we thought would be in the conversation. They need to be as Super Bowl losers. The track record of 10 straight years of the Super Bowl losers not making the playoffs might be snapped if they can keep up winning there. Joe Mixon having a great year for the Bengals. AFC South, obviously Tennessee leading the way there. That is a terrible conference. The Colts, Jags, and Texans are all ass. The Titans are going to have to carry that flag for the AFC South for sure. And AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs are 2 games up on Chargers, and they do have the tiebreaker over them as well. The Broncos are 3-6, and the Raiders are an abysmal 2-7. So any notes on those at all? Anything standing out to you there?
I mean, I think the only relevant teams that we're going to see at the end of the season uh, are the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Minnesota Vikings. Buffalo Bills are definitely still in it. Their losses have been really close and unexpected. So I don't think the Bills are a bad team at all. I think they're actually one of the best in the league. So um, as far as that coming down to it, those 3 teams are definitely at the top of my board. And the Titans, man, I really hope they can. That's my team, so I hope they can sneak it in and end up getting it done there. But I don't know if Tannehill can find a way. He's looking a little not rusty, but
He,
little shaky, I guess you can say there.
he,
And
he looked far
um,
from shaky last night, sir. He looked far
no,
from shaky last night.
he was good last night, but I'm saying as far as just getting it done come playoff time,
Oh
he
yeah,
gets a little
yeah.
he
No,
get
you're right.
he gets a little shaky come playoff time. So and then of course the Bengals too. I mean, I think they have a great chance. They're a great playoff team too. So those are my teams that I really like come towards the end of the year. But I guess we'll see how that shakes out. Being
Yeah,
halfway into it.
yeah. My Chargers not looking terrible. They look like they could still sneak in there. But let's hit up the NFC. The Eagles obviously leading the way, 8-1 for the
Can't forget
NFC.
about the Eagles too. Can't forget
Yeah,
about them.
the NFC East really looking like the Eagles all the way. But Giants are only 1 game behind them. Dallas at 6-3 and Washington at 5-5. That division is going to be very close, and with 9 weeks remaining, that could shuffle a lot. I do like the Eagles a lot. I like the way Jalen Hurts and that team is playing. They're resilient, and I think that it could be kind of one of those magical years for the Eagles, which you don't really hear much about them, but right now it seems to be all Eagles.
Yeah.
NFC North, you got the Vikings at 8-1. The Packers are right behind them at 4-7. Packers have a lot of work to do to try to catch them. They need to win out in order to probably get to a wild card game. The NFC South is terrible. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead the NFC South at 5-5. We have a five and
Jeez.
five team looking at a wild card berth right now with Tom Brady and those boys down there kind of underperforming. But come playoff time, I don't think anybody's going to want to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they might have people right where they want them, which is are they really that bad? And they might not be. So be scared of Tampa Bay, even though they're playing kind of mid football right now.
Yeah.
And for the NFC West, the Seahawks with Geno Smith leading the way there. They are 6-4. San Francisco 49ers 1 game behind them. A lot of people think they'll overtake the Seahawks and probably be the wild card favorite from there. Or not one, but the division champion For the
Yeah.
NFC West will probably be the 49ers. They look like they're in a pretty good spot. The Cardinals are 4-6, and LA is 3-6. None of those teams though are really out of that one either. I think the NFC West and the NFC East are kind of both divisions in the NFC that could flip flop a lot here in the next 9 weeks. So we will keep tabs on that. Any takeaways from those?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree for sure. I mean, uh, LA with that tough loss to Cooper Cup, so I don't really know how they're gonna find their guy. That of course with them losing Robert Woods to Tennessee Titans, I'm not really sure who their number one go-to guy is there now. So yeah,
Got to be Allen
but
Robinson, right? No,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I
like
think
you would think.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, there's definitely some interesting stuff going on in LA, and I think they might not make the playoffs, and that would be a shock as a Super Bowl champion not to make it even to the playoffs. I don't know when the
yeah,
last time that's happened. Um,
right,
but the way it's trending doesn't look good. But lots of time, like I said, you got 9 more weeks, you got 9 more games to play. I think that a lot of things can change in that time. So let's hit up our locks of the weeks before we get out of here. Last week you had TCU +7, that didn't go through. You had Alabama -11.5, that didn't go through. But your Kansas City Chiefs
jeez,
came through for you, and they won by 10. So you got 1 out of the 3. I chose the other side of the Texas game, so I got that one. The Packers beat the Cowboys because fuck the Cowboys, and I kind of figured that Aaron Rodgers was gonna get that job done. They did. And Nebraska, I lost that pick by half a point. They lose by 31
man,
to Michigan, and they only scored 3 points. Like it just needed to score, just a trash touchdown in the last
yeah,
2 minutes. Couldn't get it done. So I go 2-1. You go 1-2. On the year, I am 12-12. You are 13-11. So you are still leading the way. Give me your first 2 locks of the week for college football, and then we'll head over to the NFL, where I am now on a 1-game winning streak.
there you go. I think we gotta, of course, with being Bedlam, I think we have to throw OU OSU in there.
Okay,
Of course,
so
with us both picking um differently on there.
yeah, so OSU +7 for you. I'll pick
Yeah.
OU minus the 7 for mine. Okay, and what do you want your second one to be?
Ah, this one's tough. I kind of want to throw your Ducks in there too because we all both went opposite on that. The Utah Ducks, that'd be a good one to throw in there.
Okay, so you want Utah minus the 2 there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I like the spread there.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go kind of against the grain here. I'm gonna go with a game that we didn't even talk about at all. Um,
Okay,
I'm gonna take LSU minus 15 against UAB. I think that is easy money.
okay, fair
Um,
enough.
so I'm gonna take them to beat the Blazers by 17. I mean, I don't know why that spread is so low. Is it because they only scored, uh, 13 points against Arkansas? Maybe. But I just feel like 15 against a UAB team is kind of insulting to them. So I think they'll probably take care of business there. NFL wise, go ahead and take a gander. So
I should have already thrown my Titans.
yeah, that would have been a good pick for you if you would have done that. If we would have had this episode earlier this week, that might have been a thing. Okay, so here's some games for you. Buffalo Bills are favored by 7.5 against the Browns. The Patriots are favored by 3.5 points against the Jets, which is kind of shocking to me. The Ravens are minus 13 against the Panthers, who are getting Baker Mayfield back as their starter this week. The Falcons are minus 3 against the Bears. Those are 2 bad teams going at it. The Commanders are minus 3 against the Texans. Saints are 3-point favorites over the Rams. The Broncos are 3-point favorites over the Raiders. And the Cowboys are a 1.5-point favorite against the Vikings. The Chiefs are 5-point favorites against the Chargers. And the Bengals are 4-point favorites against the Steelers. The 49ers are 8-point favorites against the Cardinals, and Buffalo, well, that's next week. That's Thanksgiving. Buffalo is a 10-point favorite against the Lions, and the Cowboys are a 7-point favorite against the Giants on Thanksgiving. Vikings are a 3.5 point favorite against the Patriots Thanksgiving as well. So whatever you want to do with those.
I gotta go with the Vikings there.
You want to do the Vikings game against the Cowboys or the Vikings game against?
Yeah, against the Cowboys.
Okay,
I think they definitely took care of that one.
So Vikings. That is. Okay, yeah, that is this week. Okay, yeah, the Vikings, plus 1.5. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I get Dallas's defense is really good, but I like that pick for you. For me, I am going to go with. Boy, this one seemed kind of a gimme. I'm actually going to take the Jets to beat the Patriots.
Oh wow!
Give me the Jets plus 3.5. I just don't like the way the Patriots have been playing, so we'll see how that kind of works out. But I think the Jets are playing good football right now, and I think that needs to be respected. And I don't think Mac Jones is playing well. He's probably not the quarterback of the future. Bailey Zapp might be quarterback of the future right now for Patriots. So that's kind of where we will dock this episode. Hey, thanks for battling through. Under the weather, Cole Murphy here making an appearance before he tries to drink 9 gallons of orange juice and mix it with some codeine so he can make it to that 6:30 kickoff in Norman tomorrow. Might bring him in on Discord before the game to get his thoughts on the atmosphere and stuff, as we will be giving you play-by-play for that game instead of an 11 o'clock game because my work decided since I'm not going to work dinner, I'll work lunch instead. So hey. I'll be up there at 10:45 in the morning on Saturday, greeting the many people that are shuttling into the Cheesecake Factory and trying to get out of there at 4 o'clock so I can get broadcast set up for that game down in Norman. Cole, any thoughts for you heading into this weekend?
There's a lot of good football. I mean, hopefully we see some good games, and I guess Boomer Sooner. I don't know. Do I go Pokes or what do I say?
Well, I don't know what else you can say other than good night, America, and we will see you next week for another rendition of S0ner Sports Radio. Cole?
Dick on the ice.
Yeah, you know it.